Oh, at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. Look at that Hartford Slocum Railroad engine. God, that's probably 1965. Oh, you wonder if they got a website you can enter unit numbers and find out when they were made and all. Yeah, I'm gonna take that excursion train ride. Last time I went on an excursion train, I was like 4 years old. I'm not even sure where I get on. I got an hour anyway, so I'll find out. Oh, I've never seen that paint scheme. It'd be nice to have one of them and convert it into a house. Hey, I could tag shoestring. Everybody else is. Should have brought my paint pen. I'll go see if they got a gift shop. Wow, look at that Hudson steam engine. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Heck yeah. Check these out. Power Pacific. Well, I guess they're gonna hook that up here. Like there's about 4 or 5 passenger cars. I guess that's the one I'm riding. They really didn't point out where to go.
They're raw aluminum and zinc materials in by boxcar that Norfolk Southern will give to us back at Grand Junction. And they'll bring it down to the upcoming side track, you'll see on the right hand side of the train, and they'll then unload it there at the warehouse and then move them over to their smelting facilities and melt them down into larger blocks of aluminum and zinc. They'll then be transported across country by 18-wheeler to different other manufacturers across the country, being turned into different products. We also have some equipment currently on storage here at Allied Metals, currently waiting restoration or maybe some mechanical work done to them. Boulevard. This road got its name originally because there was a tunnel underneath the rail line that the road would pass through. But in the 1950s, the Southern Railway would come through and remove the tracks and abandoning this rail line. Once they did that, the city of Chattanooga seized that opportunity to remove the dangerous one-lane tunnel, giving us a tunnelless Tunnel Boulevard. But here shortly, we will be passing through our tunnel, the Missionary Tunnel, constructed between 1856 and 1858 and opened to rail traffic on August 9th of 1859. Originally dedicated and named Whiteside Tunnel after Colonel James Whiteside, who is a business person here in the city of Chattanooga, a Tennessee state legislator, and a vice president of the East Tennessee and Georgia Railway. This tunnel is 986 feet long, dug out entirely by hand with pick and shovel. The railroad had a crew on each side of the ridge digging towards the center. When both crews met in the middle, they were only 3 inches off from being dead center with each other. Pretty good for 1850s technology. Now, if you happen to have a flashlight with you today, or the flashlight apps on your phone, we invite you to take those out and hold them up against the side of the windows there as we pass through the tunnel. The tunnel walls will only be about 12 to 15 inches away from the side of the train as we pass through. Now also, this tunnel would be the reason for this rail line's abandonment. This tunnel remained a single track tunnel on a busy double track main line, meaning only one train could pass through at a time, creating a huge traffic jam on both sides of Missionary Ridge. So in the 1950s, the Southern Railway will build a brand new line to bypass Missionary Ridge, and that was the rail line that we saw back at Grand Junction, now operated by Norfolk Southern. The Southern Railway also feared that eventually their locomotives, freight cars, and maybe even passenger cars will become too large to fit through the tunnel. Once again, thankfully for us, we do have plenty of room, 12 to 15 inches on each side of the train and about 2 feet of clearance on top. Now the engineer up in the locomotive is just now signaling our approach, using that horn there on the locomotive. Now approaching Missionary Ridge Tunnel. Street, shortest bridge on our rail line. Also on the right hand side of the train here shortly, you may notice another set of tracks branching off the ones we're currently on, and that is known as the East Chattanooga Belt Railway. originally built in the late 1800s to service many industries on the outskirts of downtown Chattanooga. We currently utilize that line mostly for passenger service. We do have 2 freight customers located on that rail line. But we primarily use it for some of our longer trips, like our dinner trains, our Chickamauga turn, and our Somerville steam specials. That line's still going along the outskirts of downtown Chattanooga today, passing by the Chattanooga Zoo and Warner Park, as well as Chattanooga's National Cemetery. Now here shortly, we will be arriving at our destination of East Chattanooga. Once we're here, we would like to, if you would like to, you're more than welcome to exit the train with us as we turn our locomotive around on our 1916 turntable. No, you do not have to get off the train. You are more than welcome to stay on board. But if you and we need a way to turn our locomotive around so it can pull us back to Grand Junction Station. But back in the 1800s, when railroads were popping up all across the country, they had the same issue that we had today. Their trains would pull into a new town or a new city, and they needed to find a way to turn their locomotives around so they can go back to their next destination. Now back in those days, they weren't turning around diesel-electric locomotives like we're utilizing today. They were turning around those steam locomotives. Now, steam locomotives and diesel-electric locomotives can go in reverse just as easy as they can go forward. The problem with those steam engines is they were set up primarily for the locomotive engineer to be operating that locomotive in a forward direction. So if they're going in reverse, the engineer would have to constantly hang out the side of his window and look past the cold water tanker located behind his engine. It was very uncomfortable and mostly a safety issue there for the crews. So they came up with the idea of the turntable. Now, our turntable here was built in 1916 by the American Bridge Company in Ambridge, Pennsylvania for the Central Georgia Railroad. It was located down in Macon, Georgia at their repair shop facilities there. This turntable is used to bring locomotives on and then move them over to different tracks to allow them to go into different tracks into the large repair shop facilities there in Macon. Most of your turntables though will be found in front of what's called a roundhouse. Now, the roundhouses were built around the turntable, giving them a round shape, and that is where they would do any kind of small maintenance or servicing on those steam locomotives there, getting them prepped and ready for their next trip. Now, our turntable is never located in front of those roundhouses, just located there in front of the repair shop facility in Macon, Georgia. Later on, this turntable will be moved to Cedartown, Georgia for many years until the 1980s, when it was then moved here to the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum here in Chattanooga. Now, this turntable was first built is what we would call an Armstrong turntable. Now, this turntable sits on a 6-foot diameter bearing here in the middle of the table, and it balances on top of that bearing much like a teeter-totter or a seesaw. This turntable weighs 80 tons and 80 feet and is 80 feet long. Once you bring your locomotive onto the turntable, you would have to have it perfectly balanced over that bearing for this turntable to move. Back then, they were using anywhere from 4 to 6 strong men, and those strong men would push against long poles extending either off of the turntable or down into the turntable pit to turn the turntable around. Once again, 80 tons. Locomotives like 606 there weighing a little over 120 tons. So if you can imagine turning 200 to 300 tons by hand, and it'll be all possible as long as your weight is balanced directly over that 6-foot bearing. as we bring our locomotive onto the turntable, we'll be watching that end closest to him. When he brings the locomotive on, that end is going to drop, and the end that I'm currently standing on is going to slightly raise up. And the engineer's going to be watching this end of the turntable that I'm currently standing at for it to drop, and once it drops, it lets him know that we are completely balanced over that bearing. Now today, for safety issues, we do not have to turn this turntable by hand. We have a 25 horsepower electric motor that's going to be doing all the work for us today. But still, to turn it by hand or to turn it by electric motor, the locomotive still has to be balanced over that 6-foot bearing there in the center of the turntable. The locomotive on our train today is number 606, originally built in 1954 by the Electro Motor Division of General Motors. It's the same old type of building for automobiles that we point time to build these train locomotives as well. 606 is what we call an SW1200, 1200 meaning it has 1200 horsepower and it also has 12 cylinders there on the each of that. The 606 was primarily designed as a switching locomotive for the freight program around the large railroad built for the Western Railroad. During the past, we were trying to start finding some more large passenger facilities. The locomotive has diesel locomotives and it's only capital too. That with large diesel engine underneath the one good there of 606 is actually doing two things. One, it is spinning an air compressor, allowing us to have compressed air for our air brake system under the train. And two, it is also turning an electrical generator. Our electrical generator is sending electric current down to what we call traction motors that sit on top of the wheel section of our locomotive. And it's that electric current spinning those traction motors that actually gives this locomotive its motive power. Giving it the name of a diesel electric locomotive. Now this technology was used all the way from the 1930s all the way to the current large locomotives that you can see on the big railroads today. Now to get 606 to the other end of the train so they can pull it back from Roundhouse, so we're going to have to bypass our coaches, which is currently sitting on track 1, and we'll then ride our turntable out to track 2. 606 will then exit, go past the coaches, and then go
Too far.
back up and tumble up to the other end of the train. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that's how to utilize our 1916 turntable here at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. That concludes our turntable demonstration. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or any crew members. We'll be more than happy to answer them. ladies and gentlemen, we'll soon be arriving back at Grand Junction Station. On behalf of everyone here at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, I'd like to thank you guys for coming out riding with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed your stay here with us. And if you have, we do have several longer excursions that go on throughout the year and special events. We are currently running our Christmas dinner trains on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And also be doing our North Pole trips here starting up tomorrow night as well. And those will be running through the end of the year. We also have a New Year's Eve dinner train as well. And wine dinner trains that run on select Thursday nights throughout the year as well. And typically between the months of March and through October and into November, we run our Chickamauga turns, our Somerville steam specials, as well as our dinner trains as well. For more information, feel free to look us up on our website at tvrail.com or find us on any of the major social media platforms as well.
Well, I want to thank Johnny Ewton for paying my way on the excursion train today, the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. I appreciate it, Johnny. It's downtown Chattanooga.